From unveiling Boruto's new sword to the possibility of two major deaths, Chapter 28 of Two Blue Vortex has begun the progression to the most awaited Mamushi battle. We have the secret of Inojin's jutsu, the suspicion of Sai on the Hokage, Sumire's big reveal about Boruto's blade, a future where EIDA and Himawari lose their lives, and the most climatic event which takes place at the end of this chapter, where Boruto can be seen using the Kama against Mamushi. The chapter is building on to the arrangements for the next major battle in Konoha, with the chapter cover featuring Sumire titled New Power. She's holding the upgraded sword in her hand, and we can see how visually different it is from Boruto's usual sword. Now there's a chance for the blade from the future to get retconned, since the design of the hilt is completely different. Well, I would say the possibility for this retcon is high, cause Boruto cannot change the sword to how it was before, meaning the writers didn't think this far ahead while creating the prologue scene. The chapter begins with Inojin trying to control some chakra, which is likely a radar type of thing, for his new mind transmission jutsu. Koji starts praising Inojin for the rapid development of his new technique. Inojin too believes that he has somehow done it. We then have Boruto, who also compliments him for mastering the new jutsu under one day. Well, judging by how the raid happens the same day, if Inojin hadn't mastered it under one day, things would have been really problematic. Well, something that caught my eye is that Konoha was still being interrogated in the last chapter, even though the cliffhanger read several days later. So it could be that either the assistant of Daimyo kept interrogating him for at least one day, and this may be the same period when Sumire enhanced the blade and Inojin mastered the jutsu, or it could simply be that the interrogation actually happened for several days. But anyway, after hearing the praise of Boruto, Inojin responds by saying he wants to make one thing clear. He's only doing this for Konoha and Himawari, and he still hasn't forgiven him, neither he sees him as an ally. Well, as we know, Boruto is not gonna waste time to prove his innocence to someone like Inojin, so he simply replies by saying he also doesn't see him as an ally, followed by warning him that if he ever made Himawari cry, he will shave off the dummy haircut from his head. He then instantly teleports after mocking Inojin for his choice of style, which leaves him thinking what's his problem. Inojin goes on to say that he is the reason behind the tragic situation of Uzumaki family, with Koji helplessly having to hear this even after knowing the truth. Scene shifts to Konoha at the interrogation room, where Mitsuki enters for his turn to be questioned. Kubo tells Konohamaru that he's done with him and asks him to go back to his job. Konohamaru can be seen drained by the questioning, but then something interesting happens. As we know, Sai had been observing him when he was talking to Shikamaru through the mind jutsu. The chapter confirms he was suspicious about Konohamaru talking to someone in his head, so he quietly contacts the sensory unit to ask them who was he talking to moments ago. The unit confirms he wasn't talking to anyone, and the last transmission was one day ago. Well, I guess Sai will soon have a talk with Ino or Inojin, but instead of seeing this as a sign for him turning against the Hokage, it was already foreshadowed in chapter 79 that he will be one of the supporters of Boruto, as all the other people who are depicted in this panel have helped him in one way or another. We then have Kubo calling Mitsuki the son of Orochimaru, the former Konoha militant. He moves on by telling him that when Boruto escaped, he was the closest to him, so now he will need to answer some questions. Well, looking at how the situation will soon escalate, Mitsuki will likely be set free, so the questioning is destined to never complete. We then reach another interesting point, as Boruto finally takes back his upgraded sword from Sumire. Boruto starts to examine his newly restored blade, noting that while the guard remains the same, the rest of the blade has been completely reformed for greater strength and sharpness. Sumire explains that she used the original sword as a base, while enhancing it to maximize its capabilities. She also reveals an additional upgrade. Boruto's Uchiha style Hogoromo technique will now sustain itself automatically after he activates it once, as long as he grips the sword's hilt. Boruto then notices a faint chakra aura on the restored blade and wonders if it's absorbing his chakra, but Sumire assures him it's nothing to worry about and it won't interfere with his jutsu. She explains that the Hagoromo technique will remain active as long as he continues channeling chakra into the sword. However, she wants him to be careful, because if someone whose chakra is not registered to the blade touches it, their chakra reserves could be completely drained. The only three people who are registered with the sword are Boruto, Sasuke and Sumire herself. Well, this must also mean mean that Hidari can also use the sword, or if an ally of Boruto uses it as an emergency, it would likely not turn out pretty well. Boruto realizes she effectively implanted a safety mechanism, likely thanks to her scientific ninja tool expertise, and acknowledges how useful it is. But then Sumire says there is still one more thing that he needs to know, and begins to explain that the sword was synthesized with a special material. Her sentence cuts off before revealing what the material is, leaving Boruto and the readers without answers, as the moment ends on a cliffhanger. We are then taken to the Hokage office, where Shikadai and Shikamaru are having an argument. Shikadai confronts his father, as he's furious about the fact that the Hokage has forgiven Boruto, despite knowing that he killed Naruto. He also demands him to know how Shikamaru can still call himself the Hokage. We then have Shikamaru responding that when he took this position, he swore that he would never abandon his convictions or give in to pressure, no matter the situation. He explains to Shikadai that Konoha is on the verge of becoming a battlefield, and based on his plan, they will launch a surprise attack on the Shinju, which may require treating Boruto as an ally. Shikadai struggles with this idea, resenting Boruto, but admits that he needs to discard his personal feelings, especially since the plan involves Himawari and Team 10, and he himself can't ignore her situation. We then have Shikadai accepting his duty as a shinobi, admitting that his resolve will be to risk his life following the Hokage's orders, even if it means fighting alongside Boruto. We are then taken back to Koji's hideout, where he starts answering some questions about prescience. Inojin presses Kashin Koji to explain the situation more clearly, questioning why he only shares fragments of information instead of telling them everything that he knows. Koji replies with a hypothetical scenario. If Inojin knew for a certain that he would die confronting Jura to protect Himawari, would he still have acted? He warns that knowing too much could make someone hesitate and even freeze in fear, unable to move at all. Koji suggests that Himawari might never have awakened her mysterious power if Inojin hadn't faced danger without that knowledge. He implies that some events must unfold without full foresight for the best possible outcome. Koji further explains that the more ideal and important a future event is, the better it is for others to not know it. Every time he reveals information about what's to come, even if done with good intentions, that knowledge can alter the future's course. He says that those who know the fragments of the future, also known as the singularities, can greatly influence how events evolve, for better or for the worse, and they may unintentionally spoil the expected development. This happens because each singularity creates more complex branches of possible outcomes, predictions become harder to interpret, and the ability to foresee events, which is prescience, loses the strategic value that it holds. Koji's point is that knowing too much can risk changing destiny itself, making the advantages from the future disappear. While Inojin tries to clarify Kashin Koji's reasoning, suggesting that Koji limits information cause things will turn out fine as long as they go with the flow. Koji responds by saying that every decision that he makes must be done carefully to guide events towards the most ideal future, and that's why he's always careful with what to reveal and what to not. We also get to see a glimpse of a possible future where EIDA has been turned into a tree and Himawari is dead while Inojin is holding her corpse. Seems like the stakes are really high this time, and I know you are curious about what happened to Daemon in this future. Well, I will get to that towards the end of the video. Back to the manga, when Inojin asks if that's why Koji only gives minimal information, Koji confirms that he only shared what he deemed necessary and has no choice but to leave the situation to Shikamaru and Boruto. Whether withholding more details was the right decision or not is something that no one can know until the future actually unfolds. We then have Shikamaru contacting the people who will participate in the Mamushi battle. By the looks of it, he is transmitting to either Daemon, Himawari, Chocho, Konohamaru, Mitsuki, Kawaki, Amado, Sarada, Sumire, and Delta. Shikamaru informs them all that there are two key points for the upcoming mission. First, Boruto is not their enemy, at least for this battle, and everyone must support him even though Konoha still officially considers him a target of elimination. Their true enemy is the Shinju Mamushi, a monster capable of splitting into multiple parts and erasing its chakra signature, making it undetectable by the sensory unit of the village. That is why they will rely on Inojin's new mind transmission formation, which creates a private telepathic communication network to coordinate and prevent interference. Second, Shikamaru warns that there will be attempts to obstruct Boruto during the plan's execution, and the job of the participants is to ensure that he can carry out his role despite all the disruptions. He then explains through the telepathic communication network that everyone linked to it can act as a receiver and can even detect vibrations around them, allowing long-distance communication similar to the Yamanaka mind predefined techniques. On top of that, they will also have the ability to monitor the unique frequency that each body emits. Since Mamushi can erase his chakra signature, they won't be able to locate him with normal sensory methods. So instead, they will track him through the frequency of his vibrations and pinpoint his position that way. Shikamaru then explains that the mind transmission formation has a participant limit, which is why he personally chose a small select group for this mission. There is no need to overthink the technique, as he and Inojin will use it to track Mamushi's location and numbers, and that's the whole essence of it. Now, just when Shikamaru was about to explain Mamushi's abilities, one of his clones appears out of nowhere on a street. So he instructs Team 10 to head towards Area D, which is different than the area where Mamushi appeared, which was C. He also asks Sarada to not intervene right now, as Mamushi has the ability to duplicate, so attacking before knowing how many of him are there is dangerous. We then have the Shinju casually asking two people on the street if they know where EIDA is. The lads respond by saying they have no idea, but he looks like a perv and should get a life. They then notice his clone who's standing above them on a balcony, but since he was instructed not to destroy any buildings by Jura, he lets them both live and moves on after explaining why he won't kill them. We then have Boruto appearing out of nowhere and chopping off this variant of Mamushi, and the panel from the sneak peek reveals that another Mamushi jumps right into the scene and smacks Boruto. Well, this one too must have erased his chakra signature, making Mamushi the most tricky enemy to deal with. The last 10 or 11 panels of the chapter haven't been leaked yet, but a reliable source for Boruto leaks has revealed that we are going to see the Karma awakening at the end of this chapter, so the next chapter could likely bring some low drop from Momoshiki. It would also be interesting to see how Boruto looks with the Karma while keeping one of his eyes closed. There's even a chance for him to activate Momoshiki's Byakugan while using it, which might dishearten some people like me, who are waiting for the Jogan to pop in the manga. Anyway, let's conclude the video by solving the mystery of this panel where both EIDA and Himawari succumb to this attack. Well, I think this isn't enough evidence to conclude that Daemon couldn't defeat Mamushi, and the real reason for EIDA to get caught is something else. Daemon simply cannot be around EIDA at all times, and if a situation occurs where he will have to fight the Mamushis while being near to EIDA, that would also turn dangerous, because as he would be destroying one of his clones, the other clones could simply go and devour EIDA, and he won't even be able to sense them. There is even a possibility that his reflection ability will not work against them, because as Koji mentioned, the division power makes him dumb down, so maybe he won't be attacking Daemon with intent at that point. Well, this made me conclude that a mindless attack must theoretically nullify the powers of reflection. Maybe that's why Daemon was scared of Himawari, cause she's one of the very few people who can bypass his reflection ability due to her Biju features. Now, as for how Himawari died in this battle, well, the same formula applies here as well. She got outnumbered by the enemy with no one around to protect her. But there is a twist. Maybe Mamushi had killed Himawari to make it easier for Jura to consume her, cause she's one of his prime targets. It was never mentioned that the Clog Rhymes or Shinju cannot prey on a dead target, so if Himawari being a Biju became the cause of her death in this future, then it all sums up. Well, if you are excited for Boruto's Karma awakening and want to know more about how he will use it, check out these videos right now. I will see you next time.